You said we don't want to define the character solely by their sexuality.
Yes. I think probably every queer, gay, straight, everything, you don't want to be, no one in here, I'm guessing, wants to be defined by their sexuality. We're all proud of it, and it's a part of our lifestyle, it's part of who we are, but everyone in here has a million other parts of their life and about their personality that they want to have the world notice. And I think what Gearbox strives to do is take sexuality, gender, whatever, and use as a way to reach a larger audience and to give people something to connect with. When you connect with your characters that you're playing, and you can identify with them, you get more invested, and that makes for better entertainment because the stakes are automatically higher. So in the games I play and here at Gearbox, I'm always looking for what is a real character and how are they authentic. And if their sexuality happens to be similar to mine, that's just another facet that I can connect to. There's lots of great examples of that in games now, and it's becoming, we're here because it's becoming more of an issue, and there are more games like David this morning from BioWare and what they've been doing, and all kinds of other studios that are, Naughty Dog, they're starting to step up and add these kind of characters. And I think that's a great way of reaching an audience and making those characters more real and more interesting.
Well, it's normalizing too. Like one of my favorite aspects of Sir Hamelot's character isn't that he's gay; it's that his sexuality actually doesn't matter.
Right.
It's not like. And what's cool about that is when he reveals it, it's just sort of like, oh yeah, I had an old boyfriend that did this, and it's just as if that's totally normal. And we like to think that in Pandora, in this universe we've created, there's absolutely nothing odd about that at all, where it's just totally the course of normal existence, and that's awesome. I like that.
So speaking of characters and all that, there's a new Borderlands game coming out, and it has characters in it.
This is Chris Faylor. He's
PR marketing.
head of marketing and PR at Gearbox Software.
I have also been designated by everyone here to keep us quote-unquote on track.
Okay.
We have about 3 pictures that we want to show, and at some point I have to steer the conversation back so that we can go into the pictures.
Drive
You
away.
did it so
Captain.
elegantly and so effortlessly before that I'm sure.
Why, Anthony, tell us about the 4 main characters.
How about fuck you? Somebody else want to do that? I've talked too much already.
Well, I think earlier today you and Randy were talking about how we came to the decision to have two female characters in this.
Yeah, it was literally a 15-second conversation.
Yep.
That's the story.
I remember it differently.
Yeah, it's just a continuation again of previously mentioned masturbation, but I hope you enjoy it. Which is that we really wanted to have a 1-to-1 ratio of males to females in terms of the playable characters in the pre-sequel, and it was a very, very trivial thing for us to decide to do. Not saying that with any subtext whatsoever.
What's funny is my memory of the interaction about, like, when we were talking about the characters, like, my focus is always like, okay, what characters would be interesting because of the timeline that we're looking at, and also which characters might give us gameplay that might be fun, right? And Anthony then said, that's not how I remember it. And he's talking about how he was like kind of agitated. He's like, no, this other character has to be Athena. And I'm like, I don't know, what was your memory of that? Like,
my memory was basically we knew we wanted Claptrap, we knew we wanted Nisha the sheriff, and we knew we wanted Wilhelm because of the way the story is sort of structured. And then we had this other idea for a character that was a male, and I wasn't, that had been the first time that I ever tried to speak up about anything diversity related in like a meeting with like you, with like the big man. And I didn't actually speak up, I just got like really shitty and passive aggressive. I was like, God damn it, fuck, yeah, sure, fine, yeah, have a Claptrap, great, it'll be awesome. And then you were like, what is going on? And I told you, you're like, all you had to do was tell me that, it's fine. And then 3 seconds later, I was like, okay, cool, it'll be Athena then. And it was One and done. It was great.
And I'm grateful because Athena's like my favorite character now.
Yeah.
She's so awesome. in
Yeah,
this
she's
game,
like
so.
the fulcrum of our entire frame narrative and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm really glad that happened. That wasn't supposed to be a joke.
And so what have we learned?
You can be very open with Randy.
What about some other characters in pre-sequel? Janie Springs? You
Well,
want to talk about her?
I've been working with Janie a lot. The section of the game I'm working on is towards the very beginning, and we created this new character called Janie Springs, who lives on the moon, and
Like you do.
yeah, like you do in Borderlands, and she's kind of a badass. She can hold her own, and she basically introduces you to the moon, to Elpis, and shows you around. And depending on who you are, you actually find out that she's gay as well, and she's like the second new character that you meet in the whole game.
Yep.
Right?
No, she's the first new character.
Yeah, first new character that you meet in the game. And if you play, we've done some work behind the scenes tech-wise that depending on the character that you are, you actually will start getting custom responses to all your little turn-in quips and back and forth. And so her and Athena have kind of a back and forth relationship that over the course of the
They're
game.
flirting.
Yeah, they kind of, over the course of the game, and as you see her throughout the game, you get to hear, if you play as Athena, different things, or if a character that you're playing with is Athena, you'll get to hear it. But she's great because she's just another character, again. She's not like throwing it down your throat or anything. It's just like, hi, welcome to Elpis. I'm Janie Springs. Who are you? And then over the course of talking to her, you get to find out these other aspects of her life, and it's very natural, and it's not a big deal. And that's what's awesome about her as a character. It's not a big deal. And working with her and scripting her around and making her hut and everything, it was kind of cool to work on the first gay character I've ever worked on and actually be part of that and like script around and make sure, okay, she's a character, so what would she do? What is her hut? It wasn't like, okay, she's gay. Awesome. No.
One of the things I love about the character is because of the idea, it's inspired this kind of iteration on the technology and the way the software simulation works, where the context of her interaction with the player depends upon which player you're controlling, which character you're controlling, and that's kind of cool. Like, it's kind of encouraging a gameplay evolution, which we should be getting anyway. There should be, like, it doesn't matter about who the character I'm playing should have an effect on how people interact with me and relate to me.
Yep.
Anyone in this room might interact with me differently than they might interact, with Graeme or Rochelle, and we should have that same experience in video games if we're going to have a game where we can choose different characters.
And to be meaningful.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat that this character kind of inspired that iteration in our software.
So switching gears a bit, Ashley, before we go into cosplay and talking about characters and all that,
Yeah.
what is a content artist?
What is it, content? Okay, so we've been, the industry is still, we don't exactly, you might have a title at one company, but it'll mean something completely different in another. So an environment artist, a lot of people think, okay, well, you just make stuff in the environment, which is usually what I do. So it's anything that's not a character is generally what an environment artist does. So that includes buildings, rocks, grass, anything. But then you also have environment artists might also mean that you build things. So content, we're kind of talking about content artists being you make the content that goes into the game. You might have an environment artist put that stuff together in a level. Game design, it's gotten crazy. We have so many.
So what are some of the things you've built in your role as a content artist, things that players might recognize?
Well, I've had just being an environment artist, I've had to do anything from a crate, but then I've gotten to do some creature stuff. So my favorite thing I've ever done was for Borderlands 2, because of all the new creatures we had to go back into some of the older ones, and so I actually did the new skag for Borderlands 2. So that's one of my favorite things I've gotten to do.
Space crates are also important.
I know, they're very important for level designers.
We
I know
level
you need them.
designers love a good space crate.
Let's not marginalize our crates.
No.
Oh, no, I'm not
They are
marginalizing crates
fundamental
at
to
all.
all game design.
They are.
So have you done any work on character skins?
Yes, actually. We've had, are you wanting me to talk about that one thing?
You can if you want
That
to.
one thing? We've had a few skins for, I don't know if I want to talk about that specific one, or.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna hit next.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Hey, you know what?
Oh, you're talking about these skins?
Yeah,
These
that's where it was
skins.
going.
What you were thinking.
Oh.
Oh, this is great. Do it.
Oh no, we've had to do some back and forth on some skins for some, particularly I got to do some of the skins for a lot of the Headhunter packs, because I had to work on like all the DLC, and that's been a lot of fun. But we had to do some skins for like the Siren. We were doing like Thanksgiving themed stuff, so we had to do a lot of that, and we were having a lot of back and forth, like, hey, how do we make this stuff like cool and actually fit in and, you know, not be offensive.
The Headhunter packs, by the way, in case you didn't play them, they were all holiday themed.
Yeah.
So Thanksgiving, Christmas, Halloween. We found a way to make Easter into one of them. That was really.
Yeah. That
Amanda did some work on that.
Yeah.
And you
When
kill a
T-shirt
boss.
contest Salvador was my doing.
Oh, that one was amazing.
Yeah.
That one was amazing.
That was like one of the first things I got to do at Gearbox, so that was pretty fun.
Okay, so in the course of all of that, you were telling me about one time where you felt there was a costume that kind of went a little too far.
Yes.
And then you pushed back on it. Like, how did you actually deal with that, and what was the end result?
Yeah.
Which one are we talking about?
I just wasn't sure if we were supposed to say. I don't want to get in trouble.
It's fine.
Oh, it's fine.
How can you get in trouble?
We're in a safe
don't know.
place.
This is a safe.
No one here, is anyone here going to get us in trouble?
This is a safe environment.
It's a safe place.
Okay. Well, we had for the Thanksgiving one in particular, I got tasked to do the Siren skin for that, and she is dressed in all leather, and she's supposed to look kind of Native American, and we got some versions of it that I saw, and I was like, hey, maybe we should be a little bit more respectful of that culture, because I don't want to get a news story out of this. So, yeah. So we just, all it was just like, hey, maybe we could, just adjust this a little bit. We just needed a little bit of a paint over, and so just commented in the task, and, just talk to the artists, and it was fine. There was no pushback or anything. It was just like, hey, just point it out, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, that's totally cool.
What I love about this, one of the things that's important that I've tried to make sure we can have in our culture is that you can't, like, each one of us has our own experiences, right? And each one of us kind of knows if something's right by us or not. Sometimes people can do really offensive things just totally accidentally. And it's only with a diverse studio that there can be those voices that can help us understand if something, like something that one person might do innocently might actually be really bad culturally, or to the feelings of someone else. And if we have a spectrum of people in the studio and diverse representation in the studio, then there's a voice that might understand that before something comes to be and can speak up and make change happen. And that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
So
you're gonna sell us something now?
yeah. So one thing we like is cosplayers. I think you saw it earlier. We had some pictures of Ellie. And Ashley actually helps out with a lot of our fans in our community, getting a lot of those cosplayers ready. One thing we learned in the course of developing pre-sequel is that the characters from Borderlands 2 also like to cosplay. So that's happening.
These are the Borderlands 2 characters cosplaying as the Borderlands pre-sequel characters. So like, look at, like, Zero is dressed up as Claptrap, right? For example. So, and these are gonna be free.
We'll have more details on these soon, but but these are going to be available in-game beginning next Tuesday. So,
And what we're going to probably do, I'm probably going to be tweeting shift codes. So if you follow my Twitter, you can get first access to these. So, yeah. And then we'll find other ways to get them out for more people down the road.
cool. Okay, so Ashley, you want to talk a bit more about cosplay?
Oh, sure. As a company, we adore cosplay. There's actually quite a few cosplayers at the company now, which is really awesome. We have do we have the slide up? No. Oh, we've actually seen quite a few gender bends, which gender bend cosplay just means like you take the character and it might be one gender and you can make it another. You make it whatever you want, and we have we call it was it Handsome Jacqueline or Jacqueline, which I love her. She's so great. We actually have I know I've seen pictures of her up in the studio. I've also seen recently Lady Torg, done by It's Raining Neon. She's fantastic. Which the funny thing Anthony pointed out to me is that she's actually wearing more clothes than Torg, even though she's the female version, and that's great. We love seeing that just because it's one thing to take one character and just recreate it, but just to make it, it's like making it your own. You get to just show your even more creativity. Cosplay is creative as it is, but expand on the character. I've seen so many people come up with things that we might not have ever thought of, and so it's like we get inspiration from you guys cosplaying, our characters or however differently you do it. I think I've seen a guy walk around with I've seen all the claptrap guys. We have the male Mad Moxie. Yeah, I forgot about him. He's, I want to see more of those. I want to see more male Mad Moxies. That's really cool.
That dude, at PAX East, we had all the cosplayers come up on stage, and there was a male Mad Moxie there that just got, everybody freaked out. There were 3,000 people in this theater, and they just screamed. They loved it. And that was a really diverse audience, so, and they all really loved that. It stood out, so. If you're a cosplayer and want to get even more attention, put a twist on it.
Yeah.
So Amanda, what have you been working on lately?
Yeah, so much talk about Borderlands, but I was actually hired to work on Battleborn. I've done a little bit of Borderlands, but for
Did
about...
you guys notice that we announced a new video game? So Gearbox announced Battleborn on, was it Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was just Tuesday, so it was just a few days ago, and this is our next original game.
Yeah, Battleborn is really exciting to work on as a concept artist because it's a character-based game where not only is the sky the limit, but the universe is the limit. We're basically able to pull from all kinds of different sources and be what is a hero, really? What can a hero be? What is inspiring to different people?
I can set you up with the premise really quick, since some of you might not know the premise. The narrative premise of Battleborn takes place in the very, very far distant future. We know that at some point our own star will supernova and be gone. And eventually all of the stars in the entire universe will burn out. There's going to be a point where there's going to just be one star left, the last star. And in that point in the future, every species, every civilization that's ever appeared on any planet, on any distant solar system that has the ability to travel the stars will probably end up all, coalescing, converging around that last star. So you're going to get not merely, a diverse array of people, but a diverse array of every species one could ever imagine. So from a concept design point of view, it's the ultimate buffet, right?
We also have a ton of freedom because we're really, really pushing stylization. Borderlands is stylized, but Poplar is even more so. And so that gives us freedom to explore a much wider range of different body types, different species, that sort of thing. So I can talk a little bit about the character I've designed that's been released so far, who's on the cover.
This one.
Her name is Reyna, and She is our rogue commander. So she's like a little bit of a scoundrel, freelance commander, a bit of an anti-hero. So when she was actually the first character I was assigned to do at Gearbox, which was really exciting because I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. And Montana, who is the giant juggernaut guy, had just been finished. So the art director and I were kind of brainstorming, like, what can we do with stylization and pushing this exaggeration in a way that is unconventional and a little bit unexpected, and also bring another body type into the roster of early characters. So I was thinking about the fact that in most games, and not just games, but media across the board, the heroic silhouette is almost always depicted as the triangle, or a very, very masculine silhouette. That's sort of like the visual shorthand for strength, but I don't think it has to be that. And so with Reyna, we were like, all right, if Montana is this kind of hyperbole of masculinity, of the triangle, what happens if we take that and invert it and make a more bottom-heavy character and represent like a more pear-shaped kind of female silhouette in a way that's really grounded and badass and strong and empowering. So that was pretty cool to work on her. I'm excited for you guys to see more about that, dude.
I think what's cool about Reyna is not only did you do the core character, but you did even the weapons and everything she's holding in her hand, and it even extended to some of her personality and the way that she acts in the game.
Yeah. She's very, very aggro, but also kind of smooth and in control. It's fun on Poplar. The concept artists aren't only responsible for just the visual design, but we work pretty closely with the gameplay designers to talk about their different move sets and the way that they're going to move and the way that they're going to animate. We'll do full sheets of keyframe animations and that sort of thing. Yeah, we really try to integrate the process with the writers and the designers to sort of like what Graeme was saying before, to create a character that is multifaceted and not just sort of one-dimensional, this is what it is, but it's across the board very unified and cohesive and unexpected.
Plus, she has a cape.
Also, she has a cape. I love capes. I also love...
Amanda did not watch The Incredibles.
Well, it's only like a tattered piece of a cape, so it might have like less of a chance of getting sucked in. I also really am obsessed with doing characters' hair, so I gave her a crazy swoopy pompadour. Yeah.
So she's going to be I expect her to be kind of a discoverable character. I think like on first look, she might be overlooked, but I think that there's going to be a segment that Reyna becomes the favorite for, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, a lot of people like her, I thought.
Yeah, she's my favorite.
So one of the things we mentioned earlier was knowing that we can do better. Randy, Anthony, what can we do better? And what are your ideas for
Well, if we
moving ahead
knew,
with
we'd be
that?
doing it.
Well, what about, say, making female bandits?
Yeah, we want to do that. So when you talk about why you might not have more female characters or whatever, there's not really a good reason. Talking about having more female bandits, we were initially a little bit leery of doing it because, like, on the one hand, it's super cool to have gender parity in enemies because you're implying that they're of equal deadliness, and that's all super cool. But on the other hand, like violence against women is a real thing, and it might be a little bit weird to be in a game that's really over the top and have burning a woman alive and stuff like that. That feels inherently kind of different. And I was curious to ask you guys how you felt about that. We're hoping to introduce some female bandits and female psychos in the Tales from Borderlands, the Telltale game. If everything goes according to plan, then that's going to be really cool. But I was curious to know, once question time comes around, assuming we have time for it, how you guys sort of feel about gender parity in enemies that you fight as well. There are some female bandits in the pre-sequel that are really cool. They're big, like spacesuit having badasses. But, yeah.
He said the word gender parity, not
parody.
Not parody.
Yeah, sorry, parity.
Yeah.
Equality. And we want to have a playable trans character like you and I have talked about a lot.
Anthony and I have been trying to see if we can encourage a playable transgender character in the game. And I first was inspired by this. There's a friend of mine who is transgender who was a programmer on Borderlands 2. And she taught me a lot, actually. You know, it's really difficult. If you happen to be someone whose genitals match your orientation and whose orientation and genitals also match your kind of, you know, self-image, if you happen to be one of those, it's kind of difficult to intuit the reality that there's different things that affect each of those vectors, right? There's a lot of diversity just in the biology of how our genitals might have ended up, and there's a lot of diversity in what we might be attracted to, and that's it. Those are completely different vectors. And then the third one is the vector of how we see ourselves. I used to be kind of a bigot against women that got fake breasts. I thought there must be something wrong with them, and there's a weakness there. And I was actually kind of intolerant about that. And she helped me understand that it's probable and not uncommon for human beings to see themselves differently than they're actually built. And that the way our brains are wired is not always exactly in parity with the way our all the things that relate to how our bodies form might end up. And if that's the case, how fortunate is it if we can do something about that with science? How fortunate is it that modern medicine can help to some degree? And if we're fortunate as a species, we'll get even better at that. And that was a really awesome kind of discovery for me, you know, that she helped me figure out. And ever since then, I thought, man, we really need to cover that in some way and get that out there. And so I've been kind of subtly trying to encourage us to get a transgender playable character. And I think we will, it certainly at some point. And you know, there's other frontiers even beyond that. That might be even farther off. You know, there's so many different ways that we can be unique, and then because of uniqueness feel marginalized. And it'd be nice for us as a studio to cover as many of those as possible. I do think we're likely, you know, because I'm not going to lie, there is fear when you have creative people that are taking their time and trying to make something that other people like. There is fear, but you know, there's also a lot of courage too. And so I think it's very probable that, for example, we will have a transgender playable character even before we have an openly atheist playable character, right? And it kind of shows the different layers of those frontiers of you know, equality and acceptance. And I hope our studio can be one of the ones that's kind of, you know, part of that vanguard. And I know we're pushing for it.
That's it for what we wanted to cover. We've got a couple minutes left. What we'd really like is to hear from you guys. If you have any questions, get the hands up. I'll come to you. And then we'll all be hanging around afterwards out in the hallway. Our Twitter handles will be up here. So please, thanks Randy. Please, any thoughts, comments, whatever, let us know. Reach out to us however you feel comfortable. Hands, you're the first one I saw, but I'll head over there.
Hey, awesome talk. Thank you very much for that. So going back to Anthony's question, when he said that, like, my heart kind of raced a bit because I'm like, holy shit, you know, what if that really happened? Because no one's ever done that to the best of my knowledge. Like, women enemies in games that you can actively commit violence against. And it's a weird thought. I mean, I'm a straight white male, so obviously my perspective is kind of warped in those regards, but I think you should include female enemies in games because why not, right? I mean, you have the equality there, and I'm sure there are plenty of girls out there that would like to kick girl enemies' asses in games. So, yeah, I say go for it. And make them all transgender atheists, too.
Anthony, any rebuttal to fill the dead space while I
He didn't make his face enough
I mean, I would love to
I know.
hear an opinion on that question, and I mean no offense by this, but from someone who's not a straight white dude as well.
Hello. About the question on females being, I guess, violent acts, I guess, but I don't really see a serious problem with it. I mean, Dragon's Dogma had that about random females running around and trying to kill you repeatedly. I would just summon meteor storms at them and just go about my way. But and then you did it before with the sheriff. I can't remember her name right now, but.
Nisha.
And
That
that
was
was
her
one.
name.
The
when I-
Lawbringer.
Yeah, that was one of the favorite bosses that we had. For as far as people playing online, everybody enjoyed fighting her, etc. The smart remarks that she always made when taunting people, etc. So I don't really see a problem with it as long as it's done well, you know. So if it's just a bunch of
We always
females-
try to do things well.
Yeah. If it's just a bunch of
Entertainment's
females-
subjective, though. Sometimes our most committed efforts have made people disappointed, so you never know.
Right. Yeah, I don't see a problem with it. Like I said, it was just random chicks just running around trying to kill you. I mean, you're going to shoot back, right?
There's also just another vector too that could be weird, which is like, I don't want to give misogynists something that they enjoy too much. You know? I would hate for people to fight the sheriff over and over because it reminds them of an ex-girlfriend or something. That would be really upsetting to me, but yeah.
It's a downer.